Hi, my name's Phil. I'd like to talk about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss the renewed attacks on Nigel Farage from his former Reform UK colleague Rupert Lowe yesterday, after the Crown Prosecution Service said Lowe would face no charges related to the accusations from Reform UK. So will Lowe continue to cause problems for Reform UK? Will he turn out to be the turd that Farage just can't flush? But first, for daily news and commentary, please hit the subscribe button to stay notified. So let's begin with a brief recap of the timeline here. So on March the 5th, the Daily Mail published an interview with Rupert Lowe in which Lowe criticised the extent to which Farage was running the party without delegating or without taking into consideration other views. He criticised Reform UK for being a protest party led by a messiah. That's how he described it. This drew an almost immediate response from Farage, who was reportedly furious. Naturally, the Daily Mail happily reported on the emerging catfight. From their initial interview, they ended up with loads of spicy articles. 2 days later, Reform UK announced that they had suspended Rupert Lowe from the party and withdrawn the party whip. Now, the reason given was an investigation into workplace harassment of 2 female colleagues and threats of physical violence towards party chair Zia Yusuf. Of course, a lot of people in Reform UK would have looked at the timing and thought it was highly suspicious. The harassment line is a civil matter. Lowe has threatened to sue if the accusations are not retracted. There's not been any recent movement on that front as far as I can tell. However, threats of violence, criminal matter, Reform UK referred Lowe to the police. Yesterday, the Crown Prosecution Service says there will be no charges. The evidence provided by Reform UK isn't strong enough. Naturally, Lowe, who is struggling to establish much of a public profile outside Reform UK, used the opportunity to renew his attacks on the party and Nigel Farage in particular. Now, Lowe has always maintained that the accusations against him were a response to his criticisms of the way Farage was running the party, initially in private, then more publicly. Lowe described Farage as a viper and a coward yesterday for his behaviour. He's also said that Farage has tried to weaponise the criminal justice system against him, which may well be true, but bear in mind Lowe is attempting to do exactly that for his own anti-immigration purposes, so pot calling the kettle black there. He also said that Farage put his liberty at risk just because he criticised him, which is probably less true. Like, even if it could be proven that Lowe threatened physical violence against Yusuf, I don't think he would have been likely to receive a custodial sentence. Like, Jeremy Clarkson actually punched his own producer just because he didn't like his lunch and nothing happened to him. So this sounds like Lowe ramping the stakes up, either to make it more newsworthy or for his intended civil case. Lowe threatened to sue key characters in Reform UK, Nigel Farage, Lee Anderson and Zia Yusuf, because they're the ones who've made the accusations, if they did not retract. They have not retracted those claims, so Lowe will now either have to back down, which makes it look like he did harass people, or pursue legal action. He's wealthy enough to afford it. He will not be able to say that he simply hasn't got the money to pursue it. So if he doesn't take Lee Anderson, Zia Yusuf and Nigel Farage to court, in particular Zia Yusuf, because he's the one who really made the accusation, it can only be because the harassment evidence against him is actually too strong. So we'll wait to see what happens there. But since leaving Reform UK, Rupert Lowe has failed to make any sort of impression in the news, except where accusations against him have come up, like yesterday. He is well liked in Reform UK and his constituency, but not really known amongst the general population nationally. He's not really very charismatic. Elon Musk is known to approve more of Lowe than Farage, but he's been a bit distracted lately and hasn't been actively promoting Lowe. So if Rupert Lowe is unable to find a suitable vehicle to get himself in the news regularly enough to make a difference to general public attitudes about Farage, and like most politicians, he's absolutely clueless about the use of social media, is he any threat at all? Well, he might be. Lowe might be crap at getting himself noticed, but he is aligned with others who have more reach, including Elon Musk and Tommy Robinson. And Lowe may find it more fruitful if he aims more of his attacks at Zia Yusuf rather than Nigel Farage. Now, why would this be? Well, Zia Yusuf is clearly instrumental to the success of Reform UK. The party has taken advantage of the Conservatives losing their reputation, but also Labour failing to communicate the progress they're making in government. However, even with lots of uncritical support in the media, Reform UK still needed to be better organised. Consider that they performed very poorly in council by-elections since last summer. They were talking about being this party on the rise, and even when their national polling went up, it wasn't being translated into council by-election wins, even after Labour started polling badly. So it's entirely possible that Reform UK's success at the recent elections actually owes as much to Yusuf's organisation of the party as any other factor. And we know that Farage considers Yusuf to be instrumental. Now, how do we know that? Because when he changed the legal status of Reform UK, he didn't give control to the members as he'd promised. He gave it to Zia Yusuf. Farage and Yusuf now jointly control the organisation in law. Farage basically can't get rid of Zia Yusuf now. They're legally an immutable double act. And Yusuf is easier to target than Farage. First of all, let's be honest, some Reform supporters are not just xenophobic but outright racist. Yusuf is not going to appeal to the same people who called the famously Hindu Rishi Sunak a Muslim just because he was of Asian heritage. It's already known there's a lot of disquiet about the way Yusuf has been organising the party at local level. You know, some of this bad feeling will just be a natural consequence of the fact he's been sacking local representatives and replacing them with people he approves of. But some may just be because a party that is largely unified by racism is unlikely to take to the party being run by someone they regard as an immigrant. The fact he is Scottish doesn't help him. Besides, that's foreign enough for some of them. Lowe may be better turning his grievance more against Yusuf than Farage. Farage is seen by a hero by the core support, even amongst those who think he's wrong in his treatment of Lowe. They're not attacking Farage. They're actually appealing to him to bury the hatchet with Lowe. Yusuf doesn't really have a support base. Reform activists will put the recent success down to Farage, not Yusuf. Yusuf is the outsider who is tinkering with a project they think others built. Zia Yusuf is basically Yoko for a lot of Reform supporters. It would be easy to suggest that it was his influence that caused the party to distance itself from, say, Tommy Robinson. Maybe even drive that wedge between Farage and Lowe. It could be argued that Yusuf did that, maybe. Now, if Lowe taps into that, which he has the opportunity to if he really does intend to take legal action over the harassment claims, he might get somewhere. And if Lowe can push activist resentment about Yusuf, and Farage does seem to regard him as vital to the project, then Rupert Lowe could well be the turd that just won't flush. However, if he keeps his focus on Farage's failings, I think he's got a much poorer chance of success. You might even argue a lower chance of success. Like I say, he's terrible at raising and maintaining a public profile or getting himself into the news. You never hear anything about him except when these stories come up about the accusations with Reform UK. So he needs to provide the material to get others to do it for him. And I don't think they're going to do it because he's upset at Farage. They might if he alludes to Yusuf derailing the project. For example, he could claim that even if Nigel Farage became Prime Minister, he wouldn't be running the country because it's Yusuf selecting candidates, not Farage, which is essentially true. So the Reform UK MPs of the future would be Yusuf's choice, not Farage's. And the Prime Minister can do nothing without their MPs. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. If you've enjoyed the video, please click the like button and subscribe for further content. If you'd like to support the channel further, you can click the join button for memberships. Thanks for watching, and until next time, I'll see you later.